Welcome to Unveiled, the HPD podcast where we dive into the world of policing. I am your host, Chief Jimmie Wideman, and today we're joined by Corporal Germosen and telecommunications specialist Tyriq Riddick. Germosen was recently a recipient of a life-saving award, and Mr. Riddick was recently awarded the Stork Award, which is a Child Assistance Award. This is a special episode whereas we have the opportunity to have our telecommunications department represented. And typically when people think about police departments, they think solely about the law enforcement officers. But one of the most important and integral parts of policing is having communication with the community, and that comes by way of our 911 center. So we're very much appreciative that they made it today. Real quick, Germosen, tell everyone how long you've been a police officer and what made you want to become a police officer.
So I've been with the police department now with Hampton for 21 years. As far as wanting to become a police officer, it's something that I've always wanted to do since being a small child. From Miami, I was able to do the Police Explorer program with Miami-Dade Police Department. So that was my first intro into law enforcement.
Is that kind of like a cadet program like we have here?
So it's something sort of. It's more for 12 to 18, and then from 18 you could become a cadet here in Hampton. So nice. It actually helps out really well.
Good. All right. I mean, we've worked together on different assignments, shifts, and what have you. So
sir.
I know your pedigree. You're legit and solid. So I appreciate you coming here because I'm going to make the assumption you have a busy day ahead of you.
Just a little bit.
All right. Well, Mr. Riddick, again, how long have you been a dispatcher, and what made you become a dispatcher, more specifically a dispatcher in Hampton?
I've been a dispatcher for about a year and 2 months now. I became a dispatcher because I was inspired by doing an EMT class at New Horizons in high school. But I found out I didn't really want to be out on the road, so I decided, it would be better that I dispatch units out to those who need help. And that's what made me really want to do it.
Are you originally from Hampton?
Yes.
Okay, so you went to the program, the high school program here in Hampton?
Yes, at New Horizons. It was an EMT class that I did, and that introduced me to the medical field, firefighters, medics, things like that. And my interest grew as I graduated, and I decided to apply for Hampton to serve my city. Well,
for what it's worth, I started as a medic firefighter. I volunteered first, and then from there, I came on board with the Hampton Police Division, and here I am.
Awesome.
So, similar paths. That's cool. Yeah. All right, Germosen, you were recently awarded a life-saving award. So tell us about the incident and what happened.
So I was working patrol at the time. We were dispatched to an individual that was on top floor of the parking garage here in the city. Some civilians had seen this gentleman up there and kind of screaming and yelling and whatnot. We had an officer that first arrived, but was at the bottom floor. He wasn't aware of where the exact location was of the individual. I proceeded to show up as a second officer, and once we got more information and finding out exactly where his location was from the initial officer that arrived, I was able to drive up all the way up to the top floor. At that point, I noticed the individual had one leg over the ledge of the parking garage, and he was steadily screaming into the cell phone. I guess I never really found out who he was talking to, even after the fact. However, he was clearly distraught, had some mental issues going on, along with some familial issues going on with not being able to see his children and whatnot. And that's when the training kind of kicked in. I'm a CIT, Crisis Intervention Team member, and an instructor have been for the last 10 years. Which made this kind of unique was the fact that we actually have a scenario that we do during the course that involves a bridge jumper, which kind of emulates what was occurring this particular time. So I had seen that particular scenario maybe 200 times by this point. So I was able to go off that experience and mirrored everything that we usually do in the scenario to this individual that particular day. So I credit a lot to the CIT program for giving me that training and to understand how to properly talk to the individual and what best way to help them. I had a rookie officer with me at the time, so it was kind of on me at that point. In 20 years, I had never had a jumper, and this is like my first scenario with that, and the officer as well. So we kind of had really no real life experience except for the CIT program that I was in originally. So after I think I spoke to him, it felt like 3 hours, but it was more like 10, 15 minutes, and he was getting more distraught. At one point, he threw his cell phone all the way down from the top floor to the ground. So at that point, I was like, all right, we need to do something. We need to get him off the ledge and do whatever we can. Sergeant Carpenter, which is the road supervisor, he showed up as the third officer on scene. Sergeant Carpenter and I, we've had a lot of experiences together. We've been working together like for the last 20 years. So I was able to communicate with him non-verbally and kind of give him, eye movements of where I wanted him to go and what time to actually take action and try to grab the gentleman. So in doing so, I was able to keep his interactions with me instead of paying attention to anybody else that was on scene. At that point, I was able to distract him long enough for Sergeant Carpenter to step in and grab a hold of him, and then we all pulled him back off the ledge there. So it really worked out phenomenally, and if it wasn't for that training, I would have fumbled through that whole situation.
Right, and you mentioned the CIT, which is Crisis Intervention Team,
Mm-hmm.
and you've been a member there for how long?
I had the initial class in 2009, and I became an instructor in 2011.
Okay.
So.
And then you've had the practice scenarios that just
so
happen, a scenario you've seen so many times, you were on autopilot.
Correct, yes.
Oh, that paid off.
Yeah, I reverted right back to training, so it definitely helped.
How about the rookie that was with you? Has that person been through the CIT training?
I believe they've gone through the initial course now.
If my understanding is correctly, they get some level of training through the academy.
Correct. We do an initial 8-hour course with them.
Okay, good.
Or 16-hour course, I'm sorry.
And you already know this, but the great majority of the officers have some level of that training, some at higher levels, some include instructorships.
Oh, for sure.
And so you can very well speak to the significance of having that training, having it early on, and never knowing when those training exercises will actually have to be applied in the real world.
Correct. So as a matter of fact, now I use that video as a training video for the initial course with the recruits to give them basically an idea that stuff does happen here in Hampton, and we are able to use those techniques and stuff that we teach them in the class and put it on the road.
Bring value to it.
Correct.
Did you have the opportunity to figure out what happened to the gentleman afterwards, or do you know that?
So he was put under an emergency custody order, which was basically a 72-hour hold. And then after that, he was transported to a mental facility for more evaluations and any assistance that they were able to provide to him at that point.
Okay. Very good. Well, Mr. Riddick, you got it up. Step up to the plate now to give us a little bit of a description of what happened the day that you had your Stork Award incident.
Well, the first thing I want to say is I was probably 6 months in at that point, so I was still a trainee, but I was separated from my trainer. She would just be there for assistance. I received a call from a dad in Hampton advising that his wife had went into labor. I didn't know that she was close to having the baby at the time, though. That was far away. I just thought that I was going to read the EMD questions, get the medics to her, get her transported, and that was going to be it on my part. But it turned out to be...
you, but you said EMD. For the listening audience, can you explain exactly what EMD means?
EMD is a system that we use in 911 for medical calls, medical emergencies. It tells us directions from anything from an accident, a fall, any type of injury, heart problems. We're asking them the questions that the medics need to know as they're en route to that patient. So this just gives medics a clear, more visual of what's going on with the patient, how they're responding, if they're awake, conscious, breathing, alert, things like that. And then got the call. So the dad told me she was in labor, how many weeks she was. And then I proceeded to ask my EMD questions. And one question that I asked was, do you see the head? By the time I got to that question, the baby was crying. So I knew the baby was here, had arrived. So I proceeded to give them post instructions after delivering a baby, just letting the dad know each instruction to give mom, what he needs to do for mom and the baby. It was very, I don't know what word to use, but it was intense. Yes, it was very tense. But throughout it being tense, I remained calm through the whole call. I was like, this baby is already out for one. So there's not really much else, for me to do but to do what I'm trained to do. And so I proceeded with the questions and got the baby's name and gender. And, they were happy. There was no birth difficulties. There was nothing strange that happened. Everything went smoothly and as it should. And I'm honestly just grateful that I was able, out of everybody in that room, able to get that call and do what I needed to do as a dispatcher.
And similar to as Corporal Germosen mentioned that you fell back on your training.
Yes.
And you were fairly new in that whole, I guess, career field, and having recently, I guess, been separated from the training's direct oversight.
Yes.
You pretty much had to rely on the things that you were taught, the experiences, having the benefit of the training experiences in the EMD to help you talk them through that scenario. So how stressful is it to be on the other end of the phone, but although you're in communication, but not really knowing or seeing what's going on the other end?
I think a lot of people look at us as just call takers or just a center that just receives calls, but we are way more than that.
Talk to it.
Our passion is to help people in the community. That's why we applied. We're not just applying just to answer the phone and hang up. We answer the phone, we talk you through the issue, we get an officer to you, we get you a medic or a fire truck. We get those things to you just so that you're able to get the help that you need. As far as the intensity of it, it was more of, you need to help this lady. She just gave birth. You need to stay calm so that dad can stay calm and so that mom can stay calm. That's your main thing. So that was in my head for majority of the call, just get the help that they need, ask them the important questions and make sure everything is done correctly. So when the medics arrive, they're able to take mom and the baby and just go on as they should or as they need to.
Now, all that's said and done, and you've been successful, and the baby's here, and dad's calm, mom's happy. What about you? How do you decompress from that, from going from that elevation of 100 miles an hour, big stress, to now you have to go back to normal and be ready to take the next call? What does that process look like for you?
Would you say in general or for that call?
Well, let's talk about that call, and then we can generalize it.
For that call, I would be 100% with you. That call didn't hit me until I would probably say 2 weeks ago.
Wow.
I went through the call without really processing everything that was happening because it was my job. And when you're at work, you're just focused on doing work. You're not I try not to bring my personal feelings or emotions into what comes across the phone because I know there's a job that needs to be done. But sometimes you don't even give yourself that. As dispatchers, we don't give ourselves that opportunity to decompress and, I guess, go over the day and how it went. Sometimes it could be months later. Sometimes it could be a year later, just depending on the situation. Sometimes there's triggers. I was watching a YouTube video, and she did 911 dispatching for, I think, a day or two, and she was able to get a maternity call. And she asked the same exact questions I asked, went through the same procedure. And when she got to a certain part of, I think it was wrap the baby in a clean cloth and towel, she started getting emotional. So then I got emotional because I'm like, wow, like that's the same, process that I had to go through. And just in that moment with myself, I was able to reflect on that call. I was able to come back to work and listen to the call again. Go over what could have been done better, what could have been changed, and just really taking it in and criticizing myself, but also being proud of myself for the accomplishment that I did.
As you should be.
Yeah.
Very much so. Hey, how about you, Corporal Germosen? I mean, that's a one-in-a-lifetime experience, and so how do you deal with that afterwards, or what were your feelings after the incident?
My biggest concern was making sure that he didn't fall off the ledge. I mean, it was a windy day that day, and that was my worst fear. That was going to be a life-changing event for myself and him, and for everybody that was there. To deal with it, it was just again, my main concern was get him off that ledge, get him all the help he needs. I really thought about it afterwards. I mean, like, what can we do differently? I've watched that video now maybe 15, 20 times since I've been showing it to the class. And I usually ask the class, hey, what would you guys do differently? And try to teach them or even learn from them as well and say, hey, I may have stepped over here, or I would have done this differently, or, and try to get some feedback from them as well, and try to learn from their experiences if they've had anything like that before, and just preparing myself if this ever was to ever happen again, God forbid, just be better prepared and have a work on the dialogue too. I think I did pretty well for that particular day, but I always think that I could do better with the situation. So. It's just we deal with high level stress all the time, mm-hmm. And it's just a matter of being able to decompress from those situations, because you got to get ready for the next call to come in.
Yeah, they keep coming.
You don't know what the dispatchers are going to send you next, so
right.
You just got to be prepared. Finish that call, move on to the next one, and then make sure that you're good to go at the end of the day when you go home. Spend time with your family, get your mind off of work, and get yourself ready for the next day.
Sure. And I see the value in, and it's unfortunate that you had to be in that scenario, in that situation. But as an instructor, you kind of give validation to the importance of the training that we're providing, the importance of the CIT team. And then you can translate that into like a real lesson to the newer officers or even the veteran officers that may not have found themselves in that scenario. So you are a point of reference for them, and you can speak to it intelligently and know how to, I guess, even enhance the training because
Correct.
You've had that real life experience. So that's definitely beneficial to not only the organization, but the other officers and the community for sure.
Just a quick shout out to Dean Barker. He was the CIT person there that started the program here in Hampton. So if it wasn't for him, I mean, we've gained a lot of experience in that particular training program, and it's definitely a great show towards him and the amount of effort and work that he put into it.
He's been a great partner in that endeavor, and I didn't know we were doing shout-outs, but thank you, Germosen. We're going to change the format now. So, Mr. Riddick, anybody you need to speak to, just give them kudos or appreciation?
Well, since we're on the topic, I guess I would like to shout out my trainer,
Who's that?
Caitlin.
Okay.
She was my first trainer when I went into my call taking phase. She really, helped me understand the job and as how I should do it. But also, Miss Newman, Dina, she's a supervisor at ComSec. So while Caitlin was away, she was there just in case I needed her because I was still, new, processing the call and things like that. So she was by my side just in case, anything went wrong. So those two, that was a really important day, and those were two really important people for that process of what I went through.
Excellent. Thank you. And I'd be remiss if I didn't acknowledge the presence in the background and silently of the director of our Emergency 911 Center, Ms. Hendricks, sitting in the back. Ms. Kim, hey.
The best director of them all.
There it is. You guys got anything else? Because it looks like we're about to wrap it up.
I appreciate your time, Chief. And
Thank you
it's always
guys
great
for
talking to you.
No, you guys made it. Good episode, good time. I appreciate your
Yes,
efforts.
sir.
All the work you do beyond what we're doing here today is definitely appreciated. I'm glad you all can see the impact of your work, your discipline and commitment to the job. And so, there's this invaluable, and there's never going to be enough that I can do for you guys to show appreciation. So I thank you again. And so I thank you all for joining us on this episode of Unveiled, and thank Corporal Germosen and Mr. Tyriq Riddick for sharing their stories. Be sure to join us next time as we continue to shed light on the Hampton Police Division and the extraordinary individuals who serve and protect. Thank you very much.
Thanks for listening to Unveiled, a podcast that highlights the extraordinary men and women of the Hampton Police Division. To learn more about the Hampton Police Division, check us out on social media and on our website at www.hampton.gov/police.